Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Today, the city hosting Gaza ceasefire talks becomes an Israeli target.
The Israeli military has carried out airstrikes on Hamas leadership here in Qatar.
What does Israel's unprecedented attack on Qatari soil mean for the future of Gaza? I'm Malika Bilal, and this is The Take. Explosions rang out on Tuesday afternoon in Doha.
Loud explosions could be heard in the capital and plumes of smoke can be seen.
Israel had carried out an attack in a civilian area filled with foreign embassies. Since then, a back and forth has ensued about who knew what and when. Israel said the attack was aimed at top Hamas leaders.
At noon today, I convened the heads of Israel's security organizations and authorized a surgical precision strike on the terrorist chiefs of Hamas.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wrote on X that Israel takes full responsibility and that they initiated it. But in a press conference later that day, the White House said they were informed of the impending attack and that Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff was told to warn the Qataris.
The Trump administration was notified by the United States military that Israel was attacking Hamas. The president directed his special envoy Witkoff to immediately call the Qataris. And after the attack, he spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu.
The Qatari Foreign Ministry, however, denied being warned in advance of the strikes and said communication from an American official only came as they were already hearing explosions.
Qatar affirms that it will not tolerate any violation of its sovereignty or territorial integrity. It will respond firmly to any reckless breach or aggression that threatens its security and undermines regional stability.
This is clearly a quickly developing story, and my guest today has been following it all.
My name is Osama bin Javaid. I'm a senior correspondent for Al Jazeera English.
Osama, we are reaching you Tuesday at 8 p.m. Doha time, just hours after Israel says it carried out an assassination attempt on top Hamas officials in Doha. So much has happened since you woke up this morning. Where are you right now, and what has this day been like for you?
I have just reached the office after doing lives for Al Jazeera. We were close to the location where the Israelis hit. It is a residential area in the heart of the Qatari capital, an area which is one of the most oldest developed areas of Qatar. That's why there are a lot of embassies and diplomatic personnel around that area, a lot of schools, nurseries. And if you go there in the afternoon, it's quite busy with all of the people dropping and picking up their kids. So I've just come back from that location. The police has cordoned off that place. There are multiple helicopters in the air circling that place. And multiple teams from investigation agencies here in Doha are making their way towards that site.
So, to recap, multiple explosions and the Israeli army confirming it was targeting top Hamas officials who were in Doha. What do we know about the target?
Well, we believe it was the top tier of Hamas leadership, which had been coming together to study this proposal, which has been initiated by the United States to try and bring an end to the conflict. And there seems to be a pattern here. Previously, there was a proposal on the table when Israel carried out an assassination in Iran against Ismail Haniyeh, the then chief of Hamas. And then now there is a proposal. These, we believe, were negotiators coming in to study it. Among them were the top tier. According to Hamas, the top tier leadership is safe, but there are at least 5 casualties.
Khalil al-Hayya, Hamas's exiled Gaza chief and top negotiator, was among the targets, Israeli officials say. Hamas said 5 of its members had been killed in the strike, including al-Hayya's son, but that officials in the ceasefire negotiating team survived the strike.
There's at least one person from the Qatari security personnel who's also been killed. And that goes to show the nature of this attack, that this is in a place, an area, a country, a city, which is known for its status as a point of mediation where it brings together people from opposing sides in a neutral environment where there isn't a lot of security or guns that you would see there, and they would sit down and talk things through. So this happening here not just sends a signal to this country and its people, but to other places as well, who kind of would want to see guarantees from people who are involved in this, including the United States, to figure out whether it is safe for them to host and bring people together so they can talk peace.
So we know that Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, wrote on X that this was an independent Israeli operation. Quote, Israel initiated it, Israel conducted it, and Israel takes full responsibility, end quote. But how is that Israeli statement on X, how is that playing? They're admitting what they did and saying that it was an independent operation.
Well, if you go by the credibility of Israel, you have to see that everything that has come out of the Israeli military when it comes to this conflict has been a lie, whether it was targeting of hospitals, whether it was targeting of people who were providing safety and security, whether it was targeting of churches and mosques and other places in Gaza, for instance. So it will be difficult for people to believe what Israel says. And it will also be difficult for people to believe because the United States Central Command has a massive base here in this country. In order for Israeli forces to carry out an operation in this airspace, regardless of how far away those planes were, if they were planes which carried out the strike, that would not have been in the knowledge of the United States. So it will be a difficult night for U.S. officials to convince not just the people who are hosting them, but also the people who are in this country that they were not involved. And they did not take any part, because that is something which, according to many analysts, both political and military analysts, it would be very difficult to believe because of this large presence of not just the navies of the United States and its coalition, but also the permanent base here in Qatar.
Mm. So, Osama, as you mentioned earlier, this isn't the first time that Israel has targeted Hamas leaders abroad. Last July, they killed political chief Ismail Haniyeh in Iran. But it is the first time they've struck in Qatar, which has been hosting and mediating the ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas. Can you tell us about the role that Qatar has been playing until now?
Well, Qatar has been playing a very important role, not just now, but for the last few decades. It has been crucial in maintaining a supply line of medical and other aid into Gaza. Qatar has also been instrumental in opening up this line of communication with Hamas's leadership, where it hosted them on the request of the United States, as has been stated by the Qatari government. It opened up an office, and it has been trying to play that role, to bridge the gap between these two sides. And we've been speaking to officials in the last 2 years since October 7th, 2023. On various occasions, Qatari officials have been telling us that how difficult it is for them to negotiate between these two sides who've carried maximalist positions. But the Qatari constitution essentially states that this is a pillar of the Qatari state, that it wants to be a state which is involved in bringing peace to not just the region, but beyond as well. And many of the conflicts that US President Donald Trump has been claiming credit for, you would find that the Qataris have directly or indirectly been involved to try and bring those sides together. On the location where this attack took place, just a few blocks away, is the now embassy of the Afghan government, which we used to host the Taliban. There have been Somalis and other conflicts in Africa, where Qatar has been hosting various factions, the Sudanese, and you name it, whether it's in Asia, in Africa, or in the Middle East. The Qataris have been trying to bring sides together and then try and end conflicts. And this attack happening on the Qatari soil. Somebody asked me the question whether sirens rang out and whether people ran for cover, and I told them that that infrastructure does not exist in Qatar because Qatar is not at war with any other country.
After the break, more with Osama. Well, Osama, this attack comes just a couple of months after Iran launched missile strikes targeting a U.S. military base in Qatar.
We've heard and saw pictures from Qatar Also, there are reports from Iraq. Now there are reports of sirens in Bahrain. Iranians say that this is in retaliation to the United States attack on the 3 nuclear sites on Sunday morning.
So this is the second major attack on Qatari soil this year. But as you just talked about, this isn't the norm. Qatar is usually seen as one of the safest places in the region, even globally. How are Qatari officials and ordinary people reacting? What's the mood like right now?
Well, I think there's been stages of the mood. Immediately, I think there's some concern and anxiety and fear, especially when you heard those blasts ring out, especially in that area. I was speaking to somebody whose daughters go to school close to that place, and he was telling me that the girls were shook up, but they're okay. And now I think that is turning into frustration and anger. That how can this happen in a country which poses no threat? How can this happen in a country where it has been hosting not just Shin Beth and IDF officials, but also Hamas as well? How can this happen in a country which wants to bring sides together? And this is what Qataris and residents here are concerned about, that, what happens next? Can Qatar continue its role like this? Because in order for you to be a negotiator and a peacemaker, at least both sides need to say that you are safe and you will not be shot at.
The timing here, in the middle of ceasefire talks, in the very country hosting these negotiations, it can't bode well for future talks. What's been the reaction from world leaders?
Well, you're seeing an echoing of condemnation and statements of standing with Qatar and its people, whether it's from the region or beyond. There's been all-out condemnations from various countries. And Qataris seem to have a lot of allies across the globe because of the foreign policy line that they've taken. There's international condemnation from all the way from the United Nations to various countries in the region and even in Europe, that this is being seen as an infringement of Qatari sovereignty. This is, again, being seen as something that is taking place in a country which has been a neutral venue. And there are stark discrepancies when you try and compare the attacks that were carried out by Iran and what has happened now. Because the Iranian strikes, remember that throughout that day, there was warnings that were given. It appeared that Iran wanted to send a signal and had informed both the Americans and the Qataris that it will be striking them. It did not use the hypersonic missiles that we were using on Tel Aviv on Qatari soil. It had to react, but it appeared that it was a measured response. And even then, the Qatari officials came out quite strongly and said that this will, and it appears that the relations have not been the same since between these two countries. But this strike it came out of the blue. It came on the pretext of negotiations. And as many analysts have pointed out, that it appears that the tactic being used by the United States to give out this proposal, and then when people come out to talk about that proposal, targeting them, it appears like this was a setup.
Well, Qatar's Ministry of Foreign Affairs condemned, quote, in the strongest terms, the cowardly Israeli attack, end quote, on a residential building housing Hamas leaders in Doha. And that statement went on to say that investigations are underway at the highest level, and further details will be announced as soon as they become available. What do the next few hours and days look like?
Well, let me take you back to the scene where there are a number of official vehicles belonging to the hospitals, the crime scene investigation units, the specialized forces, air cover via helicopters, which have all swarmed the area where this strike took place. And let me take you back a couple of weeks where there was a proposal which was floated by Israel, which was, according to Qatari officials, 99% agreed upon by Hamas. And as they went back and they gave that response to Israel, there was complete radio silence. A few weeks later, there is a U.S. proposal which came on the table where U.S. President Donald Trump announced that this would be the final warning to Hamas. And as Hamas indicated that it is willing to listen to this proposal and come back to the table and yet again, after agreeing to the previous one, try and do its part to come back to a solution where more people are not killed in Gaza, it's the negotiators who are targeted. So The next few days are going to be difficult. They will have to figure out how this happened, who was involved, who knew what and when. And I think that is when you will get a clearer picture of what has taken place. But clearly, this is a major setback for any efforts of peace, for any efforts of peacemaking. Because if there is a state which can carry out attacks which resemble that of terrorist groups, how can there be mediators who are sure that they can come back, step in the middle, and try and say, we're going to bridge this gap between you so that you can come to peace?
Well, Osama, I want to take this down to what this actually means for the people in Gaza. I want to end this conversation there. Israel has been dropping leaflets on Gaza City, ordering an evacuation and bombing residential buildings, claiming without evidence that Hamas is using those. What does Israel's attack on Doha mean for the people in Gaza who've been living through this genocide day after day?
I think the people of Gaza should be front, right, and center of this conversation, because all of these efforts that were taking place in Qatar was to try and bring an end to the suffering of this man-made famine, of this constant killing of dozens and dozens of people on a daily basis, of this propaganda and lies where hospitals, schools, and every building which can sustain life has been targeted by Israel. So I think this is going to be another tough night for the people of Gaza who do not have a lot of hope. Just before I came in, just before this attack, I was talking to a colleague in Gaza, and he was telling me about how he has to move from central Gaza. He does not know where he can go. He knows that he has a target on his back as a journalist, and so do the doctors and medics and anybody performing any civic duty in Gaza. Yet they continue to persevere, hoping that somebody in the world is going to stop this genocide. And now you're seeing that one of the only countries from the region which stood up and said that we will help. We will stand in the middle of these two sides, bring them closer, try and push as much aid as we can, and that country has been targeted. So not just for the people in Gaza, for the people all over the world who had hopes in peace, this is going to be a tough night.
Osama, thanks for taking time out of your busy day to talk us through this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And that's The Take. If you want to catch more episodes like this, make sure you're following our YouTube playlist. That's where you'll find all of our recent content updated regularly, so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button so you stay in the loop with all things Al Jazeera English. We'll see you tomorrow.